into drama. It keeps you sleeping at night. Keep losing your shit on my problems. You know that something ain't right. Blaming me for causing your insanity. I'm pretty sure you're born like this. Oh, talk before you think it's your original touch, but I guess it kinda works on you. You got me paper thin, doing concrete things, stopping romance in the madness. You got me good, baby, keep on coming back to you. I know that you know it, 'cause you already messed it up. You already messed it up. I know that you know it.
Good morning, good afternoon, for whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much for joining us live on the High Five. Today, we're going to be talking about what might have been. We're going to talk about, should any business not be selling online or at least taking payments online? Can we think of businesses that just shouldn't do that? We're going to talk about how do you get out of bad contracts. Scottie Pippen got into one. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, but that happens to all of us. We get into situations where we need an out. Well, how do we do that? We're going to talk about all these things in the High Five. We're going to have a lot of fun, we promise. And this is yet another episode of the High Five. All right, everybody, let me introduce you to our esteemed panelists that are from all over the United States, from 2 hours north of me in the orthopedic capital of the world, places where ducks outnumber the people. May I introduce to you Mr. Brian Linke. How are you, Brian?
Good, Nate. Thanks. One thing you never mentioned, Nate, is that there's a building here called the Menahan Orthopedic something something, and I think that's isn't that your last name, Nate?
It is. But you forgot to mention that the thing that is on the front of that building is the Ronald and Barbara Manahan Orthopedic Capital Center. And that would not be my name, but those would be my parents. But thank you for bringing that up. So that was so. And from the heart of the Rockies, where the Rocky Mountain High is never truer than on April 20th, Mr. Danny Shard, the home of the Elk. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing well. Isn't that the truth? Yesterday, just like usual on April 20th, there was an odd fog around Colorado. Probably a little bit more than usual since most people were off work anyway. So, interesting day yesterday.
Oh, that is so true. So I am interested in I've been putting some lists of questions together for a while and just kind of looking over things, trying to figure out what some of them are. And one of them I was thinking is, what would have happened if something else didn't happen? Because so much in life is all about opportunity, seizing the opportunity, and then things that are out of our control. And so I wrote down probably 15 different situations that I'd be interested in us talking about what might have been if those things wouldn't have happened, and all the things that trickle down because of that. And just thinking in how life, that butterfly effect, one little thing happens across the world and it changes things on the other side. And so these are kind of fun, but also interesting just to think what kind of impact they have. And we're going to go, this is kind of our sports topic for the day. And so we're going to talk about what would have happened, let's start, if Tom Brady would not have been drafted 199th by the New England Patriots, but instead been drafted by the Cleveland Browns. How would have life been different if the Cleveland Browns had gotten Tom Brady? All right, Brian Linke, you start us out.
Well, I think the simple answer, I think a lot of people would probably think that he, would have done the thing that John Elway did, right? Where when he was going to be drafted by the Colts, and he said, okay, if you draft me, I'm not signing with you. I think Brady's a little bit different just because Elway was the best player in the draft that year, and nobody ever knew.
What year was that, Brian?
What's that?
What year was that?
The Elway?
Yeah.
I was in 82.
83, I think. 83, 84. Yeah, good call. Sorry to interrupt, but
Oh,
No, no,
John
yeah, no, I
Elway.
remember
right off the top
I
of your
remember
head.
where I was when that happened. But anyway, so yeah, so if Tom, okay, so if he gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns, he plays 100 years with Cleveland, as opposed to 100 years with New England. And I mean, obviously, I don't think that they trade him or get rid of him. And you know, again, they'd have to put players around him. But I think he plays his entire career with the Cleveland Browns. That's just my answer.
Yeah, I think that's. I think he does. I think they signed him to a long-term contract unless he pulls the Elway. Who was it? San Diego? Like I'm not going to play with. Was it San Diego or
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis? That's right, the Colts. Um, but I think he's one of the best players, if not the greatest quarterbacks of all time, statistically, championships. If he goes to the Cleveland Browns, he gets zero. I think he goes for a big goose egg in the Super Bowls because I mean you don't have a Belichick, which I know Belichick was a coach for the Browns at one point, right? He
Right.
was
Yeah.
wasn't he? Yeah, I think obviously having a quarterback like him is just the first main pillar of that team. But then Belichick and the team that they've built and surrounded him with. I mean, you're not going to get that with any other franchise, and you're not gonna win like the Patriots did. But I can't tell you enough how excited that area is over. That era is over, right? And he ain't gonna take a Super Bowl down to Tampa Bay. I'll tell you that.
So the question I have is, I mean, obviously Tom Brady, no one knew what he was going to be except for those of us who are Michigan fans who were always frustrated with Lloyd Carr not playing him more. And
You didn't know, and
oh.
you didn't know either.
Hey, so
What are you talking about?
we knew he was special. So,
Okay.
but all right, we didn't know. And so the question is, how much is just the opportunity? So let's say he goes to a place that Drew Bledsoe doesn't get injured, and he doesn't get that, and then that changes the whole league. So the Cleveland Browns suddenly are superstars. Let's just say he can be all that he was in New England for the 20 years in Cleveland. So Cleveland then suddenly becomes a superpower. Most likely, you won't see, the Pittsburgh. Will Pittsburgh be as good because of that? And I was trying to think. 20 years ago, was Cleveland. When did they come back into the league? When did the Ravens start and they come back in? That may play a little bit into that for me choosing Cleveland, as I think out loud. But it would have changed the whole dynamic of the league. And the Colts. Who knows what we have done? Because at some point we would have drafted Peyton Manning, and we just drafted Peyton Manning, and that would have changed the dynamic of the league because suddenly we weren't playing the Patriots every year, but the top would have been playing the Cleveland Browns every year, heading up to the.
Well, Nate, here's the thing: had they drafted Ryan Leaf, the Colts wouldn't be in Indianapolis.
Oh, that is absolutely true. Absolutely true. So,
Right.
I mean, I think it's just interesting to think about how all these things tie together and how important just those decisions are, and making
Well,
sure.
I think it's just like anything else in life, right? I mean, let's. Who was the guy who played for the Ravens, the quarterback that year when they had the defense with Ray Lewis? What was his name? They won the Super Bowl. Like literally, like anybody could have played quarterback on that team.
Trent Dilfer. He's coaching Tua this week.
Okay, right. So I mean, a guy like Trent Dilfer. I mean, you could stick any quarterback in the NFL on that. I mean, literally any quarterback, and they would have won the Super Bowl, right? I mean, so I just think, yeah. I mean, it's just that's the way life is. You just you put yourself in a position to get lucky, and you get lucky.
That's right.
I love it. All right, so number two of this, not number two, the second of what might have been, and I should have gotten some music cues for this, but what might have been if Tom Brady, or excuse me, if steroids, I was reading the thing in front. What if steroids were never created or discovered? So they have had a greatest impact on sports, not just on baseball, but on football. We know that certainly some of the guys have been able to do it in basketball, though basketball I think is less than other sports. Obviously had a major impact on sports like boxing and mixed martial arts. But if they hadn't been created, if they hadn't been discovered, if suddenly that performance-enhancing drugs, you just had to go all natural and take a little extra vitamin D and make sure your protein and amino acids are in the correct way, but you didn't have steroids, you didn't have growth hormones, you didn't have anything artificial, what would that have done to our sports? would they be the same today? Like, because at every time we celebrate the victories that are brought to us by those things. What do you think, Danny?
I can't hear you.
Danny, you're muted, I think.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah.
All right.
Earlier you had a weird reverb, and then there you were just muted. So you're good now.
All right. Yeah, I think steroids in sports. I think they're actually at HGH and a lot of the other things. I think they're a lot more rampant than we realize. That how many people are doing some type of PED to get that extra edge. I mean, yeah, of course, I would have loved to seen sports just always be all natural and people be honest, but part of me is also like, gosh, how exciting was it when McGuire and Sosa were going at it and 70 home runs each, right? Like that doesn't happen without steroids. So it was exciting to watch, but just not the right thing.
Here, the thing about that is what people forget. Okay, yeah, steroids, I guess, I mean, that was obviously a big thing, but the ball. Well, don't you remember like they were talking about the ball being different that entire year, and the ball carrying further than it's ever been carried, and so I think there are more to, especially that year in baseball, than just steroids alone, and I think guys tried to give themselves the upper hand, and once they started testing for it and they learned what was banned and what wasn't banned, the guys that just didn't pay attention and thought they'd never get caught, well, you know what? You always get caught, especially today.
Always.
Especially today. You can't get away with anything.
No.
So,
Well, and certainly.
You want to go back to high school with me? I'll show you how to get away with stuff.
Well, and certainly, I mean, the world has changed in that we celebrate, which has always been interesting. We celebrated those home runs, how great Sosa and McGuire, watching Barry Bonds. We celebrated that. It's what got money into ESPN. ESPN cut every pitch. I saw every walk in that season when Bonds broke the record because it was more walks than home runs every time he showed up. But when he got a hold of one, it was always amazing, and it was always a cut in on SportsCenter. But then we somehow villainize it. Oh, these people were, and we don't put them in the Hall of Fame. If it didn't even exist, would we have liked baseball as much? Would baseball already had like a decline in popularity? Would it have declined faster? And what about football, which has obviously, the hits are harder because would the rules have changed? Would the Brady rules that came into effect, would they have lessened because the guys weren't as big or fast or as strong?
Is that a question?
I have stumped them. Yeah, yes, it was a question, obviously, but but
I don't know. I mean, again, I think if we all had a crystal ball, I mean, then we'd be able to not worry about being on the high five or whatever. But as far as that, I mean, yeah, does it make guys run fast? I think a lot of guys today are just bigger, faster, stronger. And you ever go like into a weight room and an NFL or a major college program, and the reason that they're bigger, stronger, faster is because the technology, as far as like getting guys in shape, are 10 times, 100 times what they used to be. So I mean, if Warsaw High School has a weight room that rivals just about any Division I college. So I mean, if guys don't get bigger, stronger, faster, it's on them.
I agree, and I think there are certain things. I think our sports craze, when people we want people to go to the top, and we want to cheer either the top or the bottom. And if we don't have those two things, if we don't have people hitting home runs, people will certainly achieve that, but they achieved it faster. But we look at guys, I mean, no one's ever said Michael Jordan was taken. Maybe he wasn't, but we certainly learned that he wasn't, doing lines of coke, drinking, and staying up all night, and that he changed the culture. But so, and maybe, I think we would have heard if there were any rumors of that by now. But, he got to the elite without that. But there's so many other players who never did. I mean, A-Rod would have been a great player. His hands, his speed, his hand-eye coordination was amazing, and he would have been a great player. But he felt like he had to take performance-enhancing drugs and whatever he was taking in order to get the home runs and get that Texas Rangers contract and get that money. And eventually, you know, that Yankees World Championship. And so, I don't know. I think it would be different. I think our love of sports, they do it because we pay them to do it, because we do with our attention that then is dictated by, unless you're Scottie Pippen, by how much they're paid, by how much they contribute, and how much we love them. Scottie Pippen, we'll talk about that a little later. That didn't work out so well for him.
What did Alex Rodriguez get traded for to get to the Yankees? You remember?
I do not.
Alfonso Soriano.
That's right. Who eventually made his way to the Cubs.
He did. Couldn't field the ball, but could hit pretty well.
Yes. All right, number 3 today. We're going to talk a little bit about that Scottie Pippen. I'm going to skip the last one and save that for another time, keep things moving, because I had another what might have been. And we're going to go number 2, actually. What businesses should not accept online payments? So I had this discussion. I was talking to one of our sales partners, and they were talking to one of their merchants, and the merchant's like, I don't think I'll ever do anything online. I'll never accept a payment online. I will never sell online. I'm just going to do what they're doing. This happened to be a dentist. And I was like, no, there isn't. I could immediately come up with the worst case of why a dentist should absolutely take payments online, to create those recurring, to break up those payments, those big things when they need to make sure you take the payment before you even get there. There's all reasons for a dentist to do. But it made this question in my head. Is there any industry we can think of that doesn't have some type of touch of an online payment that you would either pay online or you would order online, like a restaurant or a retail?
I thought when I saw the question, I thought it was a trick question.
It kind of is.
I thought you guys were trying to get me. I mean, again, we talked briefly about it, but I mean, I can't think of one. I mean, like why wouldn't you? I mean, in order to get paid for something, I'm thinking, as long as it doesn't cost a whole lot to get set up, and I'm thinking that just about every business could reap the reward from taking payments online. Dan?
Yeah, I think gosh, Nate, I mean, this is a really good question, especially for right now, for partners listening, for merchants listening. And if you're not sure, the answer is always going to be yes to online payments, right? I can only think of a few that probably are just not a good fit for taking payments, but there's always.
What would they be, Dan?
The first thing that came to mind, obviously, like age restricted, things like that, which they're doing right now, right? You can buy alcohol, you can buy tobacco, there's some other things that just probably aren't a good fit, but like you said, dentists, and I'm thinking like hair salons and barbers and nail shops and places that, these businesses are absolutely going to thrive again here in the very near future. But taking online payments could make it a smoother transaction process for their customer, or kind of get that money ahead of time. There's absolutely an option for every merchant to have an online payment capability. And if you're not sure, try to ask yourself the reasons why. And maybe a lot of it could be you don't see yourself going online and putting in a payment for booking your barber appointment, and go ahead and making the payment before you go in there. You might not think you'd use it, but you'd be surprised how many people will. And as this continues to grow in popularity, a lot more people are going to be doing that. This is really what we are kind of seeing as more of the future of payments, and a lot more going online, even for face-to-face type of services like that.
It's becoming a convenience. It's the right of doing business. It is right. Like, no matter how you, the illegal things, well, they're not going to accept credit cards. Okay, well, duh. They're not going to use debit cards. They're not going to use pay at the table solutions. But as we converge on this, and I think this last 6 weeks has fast forwarded the whole situation, the convenience of being able to pay instead of having to hand over a card, and the contactless payments. And so whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist, and you're in those fields in the service industries, whether you're a taxi driver, which obviously that has, most take credit cards already, or you're simply just providing you're cleaning 3 homes a week, there is still a solution for you to be able to offer those payments. And whether it's using something like PaperTech or one of our competitors that focus on the micro payments, or whether you're in PayPal or Venmo world or all that, you're going to be taking some type of electronic payment, some type of online payment, a push to pay, and it's just where the world is. And those businesses that are thinking about how to do that and how to be omnichannel and how to be out in the front, they're the ones who are going to win. Because those who say to one of our partners yesterday, no, I just don't think I'm ever going to do that, at some point they're going to be losing and missing out on revenue, because the world has spoken, and electronic payments, and then I think eventually contactless payments is going to be how things are done. And it may not look exactly like it does today, but it's just how the world's going to work. And I think it's something we're all going to have to think about. Casinos
will never take payments online.
Well, I mean, but you can gamble online. I mean, it's you don't. So what part of the casino that it's not going to? I mean, you're already using a card, so why wouldn't they make a geocentric app where you walk in just like MGM has, where it knows where you are, and so because it's always worried about that transaction, but it is already taking credit cards and debit cards in order to make markers and give you money. So I don't know. That's an interesting one. What do you think, Danny? You're the expert of the casinos.
Yeah, I mean. An expert at giving them my money. I would kind of agree with Brian on that. I mean, there's just a lot of games and a lot of things that you could do at a casino that just you're never going to be able to pay online. But and I take that back. I should say not necessarily being able to play online, but I think we're talking about different things, guys. We're not necessarily, and Nate kind of alluding to what you were getting at, was we're not necessarily saying these are services that are going to be provided online as well. It's the ability for merchants to accept funds, whether those services are face-to-face or anything like that, right? Yep. So actually just even I foresee even restaurants, you want to meet your family for lunch after church. There's going to be a lot of folks that have their time set, and they could even get their order placed and paid for, and they get in there and the food's ready, kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can think about that people are going to be ordering ahead of time, getting things online, and still getting those services face to face. Casinos, yeah, I mean, I guess you could do a buy-in and get your card or get whatever it is before you actually go sit at the tables or something like that. So it's just a whole new way of thinking. I think one of the ones that I thought of this morning, whenever I was thinking of age restricted and what are things like gentlemen's clubs, right? I guess you don't see that happening, but then again, I could call ahead of time and put some money on my books or something like that. So I don't know. There's just a lot of ways that people are going to be thinking differently as we go ahead.
I agree, but the point of the question, the idea was, every business is going to be online in some way taking a payment, right? Whether it's they're actually ordering and providing the physical good or service online, or more than likely just taking a payment. And this is going to be facilitated by the faster transactions, the ability to get that money quicker. Because, Brian, when we were pre-showing and talking about it, where you miss all the fun of the real fun of the show, where Brian was saying, well, what about when people need that money? Well, just yesterday we were talking about instant funding. So when that's fully in place across all the platforms where they can just take the payment and that can be in their bank account and out the ATM, I mean, the only thing is those who are, and this is something I try to think about, and those who are not able to get into banking relationships. And there are some people in the U.S. just because of documentation or just because of situations of the past, they can't get into that banking relationship. There are a few people making sure we can do it. But those are just individuals. They got to make sure you can take other types of payment, like cash, which I think the Amazon Go stores, saw the revolt when they said, okay, we can't even pay with cash. Well, they had to come up with a way to do it. But at the end of the day, I don't think people want to touch cash right now, because we all think that the green is actually just, fungus that's growing in and going to turn into some bacterial or viral infection in the rest of our bodies. Right. So that's where I think we're going to go. All right.
I'll still take cash. Anybody wants to give it to me, I'll take the cash.
He will handle it. He will handle it with the gloves that they so rightly deserve as he walks it to his bank account. All right. So number 3 question today. Scottie Pippen yesterday, we were talking about the Last Dance, the documentary on Michael Jordan in the 1986 97, 80, or excuse me, 80, 97, 98 Bulls. I went a decade earlier. 97, 98 Bulls, where they went the last dance. Phil Jackson and the crew won a world championship. We got 8 more episodes to watch. But in the second episode, we really saw how bad of a contract, the 7-year, $22 million contract, Scottie Pippen signed when he was probably worth at least $120 million by the third year of that contract for a 7-year period, and if not more. I mean, Michael was making 33 a year at that point. And so if you slot him down, just think about the value. Michael saying he never won. He was in a bad contract, but he had signed it. There's nothing he could do. The league was going to enforce it. The collective bargaining agreement and the Players Association was going to enforce it. And so he had to make a choice of the only option for him was to get a different contract or to get traded and get re-upped and do extension. What I saw in that is, and I love Scottie Pippen and am a huge fan and have a 33 jersey that doesn't fit anymore that I had in high school. But I wonder, what could he have done that would have maybe influenced a readjusting of that situation differently than we saw? And then how does that affect us as business? Because we're all in contracts all the time. Maybe it's a non-compete that we have in some type of business. Maybe it's something we signed a contract. We do this sometimes with a certain vendor, and then we find out someone else got better terms, and we just apparently sucked at negotiation, and now we're looking down and thinking, man, we're not holding as much a bag of money that we wanted. How do we influence and change contracts that we get into in order to help, get to where we want to get to?
Well, what he did wrong there was just let his emotions get to him, and
100%.
Instead of taking a step back and typing an email and a nasty email and rather than sending it, taking a step back, going to sleep, waking up the next morning. If you still feel the same way, you send it. If it, more than likely you won't feel that way. I think what happened with Scottie Pippen was he just let his emotions get the best of him, and rather than sit down and try to renegotiate his contract with what was his name again? Kraus, is that his name?
Yep.
Jerry Krause.
And I'm not so sure, just watching the first 2 episodes, I'm not sure that guy would have actually done it, but at least he could have tried. But instead, he let his emotions get the best of him, and he just said, "The heck with it." And so the answer to the question is, what do? You don't let your emotions get to you, just like just in business and in your personal life, and you take a step back and you think about what you want to say, and then you sit down like an adult and have that conversation.
I agree with Brian. I mean, a contract like his, definitely emotions, but I mean, you got a guy coming out of Arkansas who's getting to play with Michael Jordan and a bunch of other great players on the Bulls. I don't even remember what year it was that Scottie signed that contract, like 90 or something. 91 probably.
91 probably, I think. Yep.
91. I mean, it was like in the beginning of that reign, right? And I mean, he took a big dollar sign, right? You got a kid from Arkansas who's like wanted to take care of his family, wanted to take care of his mother and his brothers and sisters and other family members, and he just sees 7 years, 18 million. Are you kidding me? Right? Like, that's more money than he could ever have dreamed of, right?
Well, I mean, anybody from Central Arkansas that's ever signed a contract.
That's right. That's right. I mean, so the issue I think that Scottie had, and that a lot of people have, and I'm gonna carry this into our world a little bit. The issue that Scottie had is understanding his value, right? And his agent did a poor job of helping him understand his value. That he was better than that, or maybe I'd hate to think that Scottie forced the hand and said, "No, I'm going to take this because I don't know if I'm going to get another opportunity to get a 7-year, $18 million contract," right? So I think his agent let him down. I think Kraus took advantage of it, but there's also responsibility to live up to what you agree to. And I mean, like, I got raked over the coals on the first house I bought. I bought my house in February 2008, and right before everything just plummeted, and I'm living with it. Right? It was a bad deal, and I have to do it. There's a lot of ways out of it, but is that really the right thing to do? And when you look at, whenever I saw this, Nate, I was thinking about like merchants locked into contracts. There's a lot of companies out there that are leasing equipment and leasing terminals at just unfair rates, and really taking advantage of the merchants not being educated on what they're getting, right? I've seen some of this lease paperwork that breaks down a VX520 terminal 5 different ways about the features that it has, EMV capabilities and IP acceptance and Apple Pay and all these things that are just features on this terminal that cost 130 bucks, 150 bucks. But they don't know that, right? And so they're leveraging that and putting that into a lease. So when these merchants finally realize what they've done, and usually it's somebody that comes on the back end and points out, like, I could have given you this for free, right? Look at, kind of what you got yourself into. That's whenever they get that buyer's remorse. That's whenever they realize kind of what they've done, and their first thing is, how do I get out of this, right? And so then you've got merchants trying to do stop payments with banks, and you know avoiding people that they've necessarily agreed to have this money pulled every month. They're trying to get that stopped. So I think it's just important to actually understand what you're getting into before you do it. And it's a lot of merchants do it, business owners do it, a lot of athletes, and there's just a lot of contracts out there that end up in favor of one side far more than the other. And it's tough to see, but there's a lot of ways for merchants to get out of it. It's not always easy.
Well, and I think, Danny, I totally think I agree with your what you were saying. Like when you're in a bad situation, sometimes you just have to get through it. And
Right.
I just think about the golden rule. You have to always treat others the way you want to be treated, even when you're not being treated that way. And it sucks sometimes. And certainly when you're doing these type of situations and you're involved in, you know, in something that's really causing you stress, harm, discomfort, whatever it is, it's not fun. But especially when you're in a legal bound contract and there's nothing you can do to not enforce it, the only thing you can do is start treating others the way you want to be treated. And that's what I saw. I mean, they were just, Jerry Krause, he didn't deserve respect in any way. He was the ultimate of the golden rule. If you start treating with him respect, you're treating him only because that's the way you want to be treated, not because he deserves it. And sometimes that's how you have to get out of these things, or at least even have a chance. And sometimes this is not possible. There are contracts, you just have to wait them out. And that's why I'm always like, long-term contracts are dangerous. 7-year contract, I mean, who signed a 7-year contract in any league now? I mean, I was trying to think. I mean, that Alex Rodriguez 10-year one, that will never happen again. Well, it did happen in baseball. Never mind. But baseball's an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
a
some
couple.
big ones, but there's caveats to all of them, and there's ways that they can get out of them. I mean, that's because they've got a good agent. They've got good people that are making sure that they're not setting themselves up for failure. And unfortunately, like, business owners don't have that, right? So that's where us as payment advisors and, really trusted professionals with these merchants, it's our responsibility to try to be on their side and help them get through some of that stuff. So
yeah, just do the right thing, and it will eventually come around and get you. And one of the things I saw that was so interesting about is people talking about that Jerry Krause, yes, the Bulls, and I was part of it. I mean, we were living in northern Indiana during that time. I watched every playoff game in all 6 of those world championships, and the Bulls. But I'd really forgotten, because I wasn't, when Michael Jordan was drafted in '84, I was 7 years old, going on 8. And I didn't remember how bad the Bulls had been. All I ever remember is how great they were and how great Michael Jordan was. They were from absolute rags. They got to riches, and karma sometimes is out of it, and it comes around and gets you, because what have the Bulls done since then when they didn't treat Scotty and even Phil and the whole team with respect, in my opinion? It comes back around. And so if you choose the high road.
Yeah, other than that run they had with Derrick Rose, I don't know who else was it, like Joakim Noah and
yeah, I mean, they had that run, and he was a great team. And what happened to Derrick Rose? I mean, did he get bitten by the karma that came around? I mean, what a fun player he was coming out of Memphis, and a great run with Joakim Noah and that team. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I don't. It's not how, but you reap what you sow. I 100% believe that. You're not in control of the universe and how God is going to treat and everything there. But you can always say you're going to win by taking the high road. And those are what's tough. And I'm not saying it's easy. And I have not done it many times. But those are the things that you have to do in order to win when you're in situations that you put yourself in. It's your fault. You signed the contract, and now you're looking for a way out. And the only thing you can do is always take the high road and hope that it works itself around. All right, on to number 4 for the day. Let me bring it up. It's number 4. We're going to talk. Okay, this is just really kind of having a little bit of fun. But here's the interesting thing. So Zoom has become the most popular thing. I'm thankful for their stock price. They've had a little controversy with their security, but they went, they literally are added in one day. I think it was 100 million new users. They're worldwide, being used all over the place. A few other players, all of them seen a little uptick in the Google Hangouts, or now Google Meet, and it's branded all the way through, and the WebEx and the GoToMeetings and all that. But Zoom has been the thing. And I was thinking about is video chat. I mean, Apple was reporting how much more people are using FaceTime during this time because of being able to be quarantined and talk to people. And I love that I have a screen right now that I'm looking at Danny and Brian, and I can see them. And I see them every Monday through Friday. I saw an article where it was a BuzzFeed article, which I was checking, looking around, and it was one of the writing about how they knew they were having a breakup and they got broken up during this quarantine on Zoom. And it made me ask the question, what are some of the things we shouldn't do on Zoom? And what is our world going to look like with video conferencing now? How much more are we going to use it? Because we've had these 6, 8, whatever weeks it turns into of quarantine.
Okay, well, pass.
Brian Linke, who we drag kicking and screaming every morning into his studio, also
what does that
known as
even mean?
workout room.
What kind of question is that?
Okay, just say
I think
it's a dumb
like
question.
Zoom, I think things like Zoom are just going to get more and more popular, right? I personally have been using like screen share meetings, and just so I can get face to face with partners that we work with, and everybody wants to know who's on the other end of the line, right? And have more of a relationship than we can, even though most of our business is handled over the phone and through email. It's always just a great way to connect with people, right? But never to this level. And I think this level is really pushing us forward to use this even more. Even when we come on the other side of this, I'm going to be using Zoom and Ring Central and some of these other things a lot more than I am today, just because I've gotten more comfortable with it, and a lot of people have gotten more comfortable with it. And Brian Linke, I'll tell you right now, you're going to use this more than you think because we're comfortable with it now, and a lot more people are too.
Okay, so the whole like writing like notes on sticky notes and putting them on people's desks, that's out?
No, I think
Or is that still in?
I think there's still going to be some room for that. Most people are going to spray it with disinfectant before they even touch the note that you've left on their desk. But
I'll wear gloves.
But the things, Nate, I had to think about this one for a while. There's been a lot of funny little videos and snippets and memes of people doing just dumb stuff on these screen share virtual meetings. And there's a lot of dumb ones, but just getting into something a little more normal for me, it's eating, right? Like I don't think eating on the Zoom meeting is the right thing to do. Like I've got an apple here, I eat an apple almost every day, and I'm not going to sit here and chow on this thing while we're on our meeting right now. And so not only does everybody have to watch me eat, but everybody gets to hear me chew. That's just my thing. I don't think eating is the thing to do on the Zoom meetings.
Okay.
Well, actually, the very first high five we ever did, I was eating a banana, and Matt Hoskins yelled at me about it. So now I just wait till it's over, and then I eat the banana.
The right thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer because it's just, and you get into these things with people that sit, whether they use Zoom or Netflix actually has this little chat thing that you can do. People are sitting and watching movies together and trying to create that. So I'm going to jump to you guys. So here we go. We're going to go into our last question just because I need to reset my studio. So I need to get off camera here because literally my light just came crashing down. I'll take a picture.
I heard it sounded like something hit the ground.
Yes. So, and if, right now I'm holding up my monitor with my knee so it doesn't fall to the hard floor. So I'm going to take care of that while I go to our last question, which I know is Edge pricing, cash discount pricing. It is here to stay. It is not going away, absolutely. And now I strongly believe, and I believe the gentleman on the call on this high five with me believe this too. We're to the top of a mountain and a tipping point when it comes to Edge, cash discount, surcharging. And Danny, can you give us a brief excerpt of what that means? What, you know, we call it Edge. That's our branding in the PayProtect world and the NAB Holdings world. But we also, sometimes you hear cash discount, a sister product, there's a surcharge product. Can you talk what that is? And then let's talk briefly, why is that going to catch on?
Yeah, I'm honestly really excited for the future and what it means for programs like this. You know, so really, it all started off with surcharging years ago. A lot of merchants have been doing it, and that's just the ability for them to put a sign up that says they're going to surcharge all credit card transactions a specific percentage. A lot of loopholes you got to jump through. You got to go through Visa, MasterCard to get approval, hang specific signage. You can only do it on credit cards, no offline debit whatsoever. So, which is, for most small to medium merchants, it's, you know, a very small portion of their business, right? The majority of SMBs are accepting a significant amount of debit cards or check cards, which is debit, just ran as a credit. And then you get into cash discounting, which just picked up 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, we were on the forefront of it, thankfully, and have really pushed this out and made this available. And it was just an expanded program, very similar to surcharging. It was worded differently. It allowed merchants to offer discount for cash paying customers, and do it on all card types that were processed like a credit, including those debit cards that were processed like a credit card, and help them eliminate, you know, the majority of their processing fees. And then you get to Edge, right, which you know, is kind of our branded version of a cash discount program. A little bit of a different thing. It's a more of a 2-price model. But, you know, to keep it simple, same concept, right? For partners explaining to merchants, it's the ability for them to implement this program and eliminate their processing fees. And as we've gotten up till, you know, these more recent times, it's been a very gradual increase in popularity, right? A lot of merchants, especially SMB merchants that we cater to, were really, you know, jumping onto this, sensitive to the amount of fees that they're paying each month. A lot of them were in long-term contracts or leases and frankly getting taken advantage of. And the way out of it was getting into a program to help them just eliminate their processing fees entirely. But there was still a lot of reservations too. You know, I think at a certain point right before, you know, this pandemic hit, close to 60% of our submissions were cash discount submissions. Now I think that's well over 80%, and going to continue to rise. Right? There's going to be some businesses that just don't feel the need to implement it. Maybe just they have huge margins, or whatever the case is. But the majority of merchants now are all over this. And you know, the thing is that customers, all of us are customers to a lot of businesses, and we're a lot more sympathetic to these businesses right now. Right now, I think we're a little bit more keen to it because we know what those fees are, like what they're getting hit on their bottom line and how much it impacts that business because we're in this industry. But a lot of people that aren't in this industry are still very sympathetic to these businesses and helping them try to get through these times. And they're not, as customers, they're not concerned about paying a little extra when paying with their card or getting a discount when they pay in cash. And that's just going to continue growing in popularity. More merchants are going to do it. So although this huge dip that we're all seeing with this pandemic and what it's doing to all of our businesses, I think this is where we're going to see, Nate, you're saying a tipping point. Like, I really do think that this is going to be the launch of cash discount programs like this in a big way. And this is going to be the new future for a lot of merchants taking payments and offsetting their processing fees like this.
Brian, I know you've talked to a lot of merchants about using Edge. We had former products we called Sultra Prime when we were first starting this out and coming out. You hear cash discount. I know you've talked to your merchants and you've heard a lot of people giving, hey, reasons they can't do it and putting up obstacles and saying, hey, I just can't do this. What are some of those things you're hearing, and how are you answering those questions or defenses that you're hearing from merchants?
Well, that's a great question, and coincidentally, yeah, yesterday I actually got on the phone and talked to a bunch of merchants, and Warsaw, Indiana, has been slow to come around with the cash discount, and for no other reason than everyone's scared, right? They're, well, okay, he's not doing it, so I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to lose 20% of my business, and What I found yesterday, and I called maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 merchants, and a couple of them are maybe the most conservative people when it comes to something, when it comes to change. Okay, no one likes change. They like cash business, and obviously, they've got to take credit cards now just because it's the world we live in. But what I'm hearing, and I'm slowly starting to hear more of it, that people are willing to actually take a look at it once this thing. Whereas these people wouldn't even consider it before.
Right.
And the way I sell it, I mean, I told the guy yesterday, I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but I have a feeling that your prices aren't going to stay the same as what they are now, right? I have a feeling that, because of this thing, it's a restaurant, and because it's just, takeout, and they do a little bit of takeout, and they're not really the best when it comes to that. They're not really an online presence, have an online presence. So I know they're thinking about raising the prices. Well, I told them, I said, instead of doing that, maybe we do something like this first, and we do kind of a soft launch to the people. And so, yeah, I'm hearing a little bit more of a stir around here. And I just think it's just a matter of 1 or 2 businesses jumping in and doing it, and then everybody, because I think they all want to do it. They're just scared that they're going to be the first, and it's going to drive business away. But so yeah, I'm hearing before where it's like, okay, there's no way, and now I'm hearing there might be a way. So
and I'll tell you, I think a lot of merchants, right? You're exactly right, and you're on the right track too. Like a lot of merchants that were hesitant to this program were concerned about friction with their customers, right? That was the main reason, right? Of course, every merchant was attracted to eliminating their processing fees, right? Whether that amount was $200 a month for some smaller merchants, up to $2,000 for some much larger merchants, and even higher. They absolutely wanted to eliminate that and get that money back coming into their business. But some merchants were definitely sensitive to it and concerned about friction from their customers. Those concerns have really, from my experience and what we've seen over the last 30 days, those concerns have really gone away. And merchants are open to having these conversations and just explaining to their customers that they've got a 2-price model, they've got the option to pay in cash and receive a discounted price, and more merchants are going to be implementing it and kind of getting over those concerns of, well, what's my customer going to say? I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Not anymore. A lot of businesses are doing this to stay alive.
And again, I know we need to wrap this up, but and I go back to what Matt Hoskins said, a week or 2 ago. If you're not selling it, it's because you don't believe in it. And once you start believing in it, then you'll start selling it.
And I think that's my last question was going to be for Danny specifically around that. We have 3,000 sales partners plus across the U.S., some representing PaperTech, some white labeled with us and walking under their own brand and just using our services and products. And are you hearing from our sales partners, are there any that are now still holding back and not using and not selling a cash discount, an Edge program, and just saying, no, that's not something I'm interested in doing, and not taking to the merchants? And if so, why are they? What's their reasoning on that?
Not anymore. There were partners up to this point that were, kind of taking a hard stance, and they liked having it as an option, but they still weren't confident to push it out to every single merchant, right? And use that as an entry point to start the conversation. There were still a lot of partners that, were kind of stuck and continued to do it the way that they did before. Maybe they had dabbled or tried a little bit of cash discount, but it was not their primary focus. I did talk to a partner yesterday that, that was not going to talk to his fine dining merchants. And he openly said, if I'm going to a fine dining restaurant, I'm going to be upset if I've got a different price for cash and a different price for credit. And I was kind of floored. I'm like, really? Like, how is that possible? You go to a fine dining restaurant with you and your wife or husband and a group of people, and you spend $300 or $400 or $500 on a dinner, and you're going to be upset for having a two-price option there. And he said yes. And I was able to turn him around quite a bit, because like Brian just said, that means he didn't believe in it, right? And if he pushes that on to his merchants, they're going to be fixated on that. If he takes a different approach and encourages them, here's why you need to do it, and here's why you're not going to have pushback and lose customers over this, it's a totally different conversation. So I think any partners that we had that were maybe on the fence or just still had not adopted it as one of their primary sales methods, they're now starting to do it. So more and more people are coming around to it. I don't know of any that aren't using it as an entry point to start conversations with every merchant. You have to do it now.
And certainly reach out to partners@PayProTech.com. If you're interested in being part of this, even if you're a merchant, we will certainly talk to you and connect you to one of our sales partners. But if you're a sales partner that I know are watching this and kind of it's time to jump in, time to learn. Get on a training session with Danny or Coach Mike, and let's help you understand why this is the way that it's going to go. There's no question in my mind, as I've looked and I've studied what's happened in Australia, as they've done, as other places and other countries, this has just become the way of doing business. And so edge, cash discounting, surcharge, I think there's going to be some changing to the programs for sure, and there are going to be some better programs. We believe ours is the best, of course, and some that aren't as good. But the way of the customer paying a different price for using their plastic or whatever, contactless payment and cash, that's going to be the way of the world. And then we're going to see some other payment changes. That'll be fun to talk about another time. As we get finished up, there's a lot of things that we're going to continue talking about on our Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday High Five. I also want to encourage you, if you're interested in talking more about this payments thing that we do at PayProTech, we would love for you to join us in our My PayProTech group. And if you join the group, just search My PayProTech. We'll accept you in there after you answer a couple questions, and we would love to have you. In fact, we're doing a special thing about how to build an offer. And so if you're interested, we would love to interact and kind of learn from each other in that group. We have over 300 partners that are part of that group. Would love you to join the My PayProTech group. As we finish up, Danny, Brian, closing words as we get ready to sing the High Five theme song as we sign off for another week or another day.
My closing words, I just want to little shout out to Matt and Shannon Proctor, who last night had a little baby girl. We know Matty Ice Proctor, June, 8 pounds, 3 ounces, and we couldn't be happier for both of you.
Very excited about that. Thank you. Great
Absolutely.
one, Brian. Good job. And Danny Shard, what do you have to say?
Absolutely. Shout out to the Proctor family. It's a huge addition. For those of you who aren't familiar, Matt Proctor's one of the best in our POS Pros team, helping a lot of our partners have consultations with merchants to assist in those POS solutions and doing the solution fitting. So really couldn't be happier for him. If you talk to Matt, shoot him an email. He'd love to feel the love.
Matty Ice.
Matty. I'll say that. I'll say Matt Proctor, Shannon Proctor, congratulations. Can't wait to meet the little girl. A wonderful opportunity to stay at home. Just be with your baby. You'll be, I'm pretty sure, in the next 24 hours. Thank you to Brian Linke, to Danny Shard. I'm Nate Manahan. This has been another High Five as we get finished up and I bring the music up and we dance it off to the High Five.
The time is done, the questions are said, opinions hide, discussions are led, a show about nothing and everything, it's all the same. We've got sports, entertainment, sales, and more.